Either way, I got to work and started looking closer into my circle to see who the person could be. She was always close to my old friend Nick, but that was because we all went to high school together. I had Nick over a few times, and they would casually bring up the science projects they had and reminisce about the simplicity of the time. But I was almost sure a relationship didn't form from that. Then I thought about maybe my coworker Trey. She always talked so highly of him. She would compliment how sweet he was and how he drove a nice car, but she never seemed to be interested in him. I spent the next few weeks cycling through the potential partners. The thought of her loving someone else, someone that I knew, was driving me mad. I drank a lot and couldn't fathom the thought of the other man getting the same treatment and happiness I got from our relationship. And on top of that, she took my kid. A lot of thoughts raced through my head the next few weeks. I retraced my steps throughout the past 6 years we had been married, trying to figure out what went wrong and who could be satisfying her in ways that I couldn't. Months went by. I considered divorce or telling the police my kids had been taken wrongfully from me, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I had no motivation to. At times, I would lay in bed for hours at a time. My mattress became my solace. The indent in my bed grew more human-shaped as time went on. The house became filthy, and everyone around me felt like a suspect. I hadn't gone anywhere for weeks other than work and home. Every time I tried to go to sleep, I saw my wife Emily in my dreams, laughing with this mystery man, and my kids beginning to call him dad and them enjoying the family that I created. I checked all of her social media accounts, and there had been no change, no new posts, or any new followers. I called all of her coworkers and her job each day, and they would always tell me they had not seen her. I've emailed her and called her from different numbers and have had no luck in contacting her. My last resort to find her was public court records. I went there to see if there were any records about a change in property with her name on it. I found nothing. By this point, I had lost my family, my friends, and my will to live. I even considered hiring a private investigator, but there was no point. This was when I decided to give my brother Isaac a call. I don't know what I expected from that conversation. I realized deep down that I wanted to live because if I didn't, I wouldn't have called him. We ended the call agreeing that I should see a therapist. So the next morning, I woke up and tried to do my usual routine and called up some therapists in the area. I finally found one that specialized in family-induced problems. Her name was Mrs. Smith. I spent 2 years seeing Mrs. Smith and during this time started coming to terms with navigating life without my wife or my kids. The pain in my heart and insecurity in my mind was replaced with rage and resentment for Emily. I usually dealt with this frustration by going to the gym 7 times a week. I also changed my diet and began cooking more. These changes, paired with the therapy, helped my mental and physical health. I became really ripped. I felt good and looked even better. Things started to look up from here. That was until I stumbled across a letter in the midst of a bunch of piled up junk mail in the mailbox. It was from Emily. I rushed inside and threw the rest of the mail on the kitchen table. I was eager to see what she had to say to me. The audacity she had. I felt a range of emotions. I felt anxious to find out the truth and resentment for her decision. In the letter, she wrote that leaving me was the biggest regret of her life. Her partner had been laying hands on her for months on end, and she showed regret for leaving me. Then she told me that I was the true love of her life and that no man could ever compare to me. At the end of the letter, she asked to talk in person and begged for my forgiveness. I couldn't believe what she was saying. Not once in the letter did she tell me where my kid was or if they were okay. I considered driving to the return address to see them, but if I wanted to see my kid again, I knew I had to be careful. Instead, I sent a return letter and agreed to meet up at a local coffee shop. We met up later that month, and she showed up with this huge getup. She wore makeup that made her eyes sparkle. She smelled really good, like warm cookies, and walked towards the table I was sitting at. Red lips wrapped around a smile greeted me as she sat down. I could tell that the reason she dressed this way was to get me back and try to make me remember everything we had. It's why she wore the shoes I always told her were my favorite on her. We began talking, and she asked how I was doing and what I had been up to.